In the previous lecture, we've seen how we can write stuff to the server using an SQL injection using the into/out file function. And if the server allows us to write to the web directory, to a place that we can browse, then we can just write our reverse shell using the same code that we've seen before using the pass-through, and then we can browse it and we'll get a reverse shell exactly the same way that we did when we upload a file. The problem is we weren't able to write stuff to the web directory, so we can't actually read the stuff using the URL. The only place that we could write to was the TMP. So you can't actually browse the TMP through the URL, therefore you can't just browse that file. So what I'm gonna do today is I'm gonna show you a workaround for that problem, but for this workaround to work, the same website or the same server has to have a local file inclusion. This is very important. The same web server, not the same website, because we seen, remember in the first section, how we can discover all the websites that are within one server. So if one of them has an SQL injection and the other has a local file inclusion, you can combine both of these and get a shell. And I'll show you how to do that. So I'm actually going to be doing this on the DVWA. You can do it on Matilde, but I'm just doing it here just for a change to show you just another example. So I'm going to the SQL injection and I'm going to put number 1 here. Submit it. And then we're going to start doing our injection exactly the same way that we always did. So we close the quote and we do union select 1, 2 and add our comment. And that will work, as you can see. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to write my shell to TMP. And then I'm going to browse that shell through the local file inclusion. So my exploit is going to be union select 1, 2, and in 1 I'm actually going to write what I want to write to the file. So I'm going to write a PHP code, the same PHP code that we've been using to get a reverse connection to my computer. And the code is going to be pass through NCE bin sh my IP and the port, which is 8080. And instead of number 2, I'm going to put null, so nothing will be written to the file. And then we're going to say into out file. And we'll call this reverse.php. So let's just have another look on this exploit. So what we're doing a normal union select. And we're doing a normal into/out file, and we're saving this in the TMP exactly like we seen in the previous lecture. But instead of writing just normal stuff, we're actually going to write PHP code, and we're going to do a pass-through NCE bin sh my IP port. And what this is going to do, it's actually going to try to connect to this IP using netcat. So let's exploit this. And I'm actually going to set the ID here to -1 so that no values come in for the admin and admin in here in the first name and the surname. So I just set that to -1. And then I'm going to put my exploit here after the -1. Same way that we always do it. Hit enter. And it tells us that the file already exists, but it actually doesn't. This is just a normal error. So this file has been written now to the server. Now, the problem is, if we wrote this file to somewhere else other than TMP, so for example, if we can actually write this file to, say, var www dvwa, then we'd be able to just go and browse this file from here. So all we have to do is just go to dw to this and then write in reverse.php, and then we'd be able to see it. But again, we actually don't have permission to write in here. You can try to write in images, for example, dvwa images. So you can actually, before you go to this method, you can go ahead and try to find a place or writable place on the server. A lot of the time you won't, because if web admins should actually know about this, and they shouldn't allow you to write stuff like that. But if you did, then you're lucky. You can just go ahead and browse it like this. If you didn't, then just continue this video and see how we're going to exploit it. So now I'm just gonna listen for connections using netcat. So I'm gonna do nc vvlp 8080, and that will listen for incoming connections on port 8080. So when we execute this code, it'll try to connect back to us and we'll get the connection here. So now we have the file written and we're listening on connections. All we need is a way to browse this file to get it executed. So we're seeing that we can't actually write anywhere that we can browse it. And because we stored this in temp, if you manage to run it from anywhere on the web server, then you'll have connection and you'll have access to this website. So it doesn't you don't have to find a local file inclusion in the same website. You can find it in any website in the same server. And this is where the information gathering part comes in really handy. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm actually just gonna run it from within DVWA. But I just want you to know that you can do this since we stored it in the TMP. You can open it and browse it from within any website on the server. So all you have to do is just find a website on the same server that has a local file inclusion. Now I'm going to go to the file inclusion, and we've used this before. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to browse to etc password first to make sure it works, and it works. Now we're going to browse to our file that we just uploaded, which is stored in TMP. reverse.php, and as you can see now we got a connection and we can run any commands we want on this server, and pretty much we have a reverse shell and we can do whatever we want on it. Now I'm gonna listen on 8080 again, and what I want to do is I want to show you how you can exploit this now from anywhere within the server. So I'm actually going to go to Matilda instead of DVWA. And we're going to go to the local file inclusion vulnerability in here. So we'll try to exploit this now the same way. So it's 5 times back. etc password. And as you can see, we can read the etc password. Now all we have to do is just read the TMP. So this is a completely separate website from DVWA. Let's assume that we found an SQL injection in DVWA, and then we found a local inclusion in this. Combining the two, because the two websites are installed on the same server, on the same computer, we can actually get a reverse shell on that server. And doing that, we're just going to go to TMP, reverse.php. And again, as you can see, we have our shell here, where we can do whatever we want on the target web server. So again, the idea to take from here is use an into-out file. You can write stuff anywhere. If you can write stuff within the web directory, then you're lucky. You can write your reverse shell and just browse it through the URL as if you're browsing any file on the web server. If you can't, then look for another website on the same server that has a local file inclusion. And if you do, then you can just write the file using the SQL injection and then browse it using the local file inclusion, and you have your reverse shell.